So I will begin. Thank you for letting me give this talk. It's about a trip that I took with Red Hill Birding with my wife and 8 or 9 other people under the auspices of Red Hill Birding in November of 2024. Let's see. That's okay. So here's Bhutan. It's a landlocked island, country that is southeast of where Clive Harris gave his talk of his visits to the stands. Here's a more closer view. It's basically between India and China, Tibet and China. And you can see that it's bordered on the northern part by the Himalayas. I'd always wanted to see the Himalayas. The capital is Thimphu. It's also the largest city. It has a population of less than 1,000,000, 730,000. It has a semi-constitutional monarchy. Its official language is Dzongkha, but interestingly, all the kids in school from the earliest age learn English, and they also learn Hindi because that's what they watch a lot of Indian television. The state religion is Buddhism. There's about a fifth are Hindis, and there's a smattering of other religions. It's a poor country. Its GDP is only about $3.4 billion, and the per capita is 4.3 thousand. So I did get to see the Himalayas. Didn't get to walk in them, which was something I wanted to do when I was younger, but anyways. So this red outline here, dotted line, shows basically the Himalayas and the southern portions of the foothills, and Bhutan here on the eastern portion. Another view showing the snow-capped parts of the mountains in northern Bhutan. Thimphu here, the capital on the left, in the west. So we flew from Bangkok and landed in Paro. Here's a picture of the royal family at the airport. And you start to notice how beautiful, intricate the architecture is in Bhutan. Here's Alice and I in the airport. And have you ever seen a luggage carousel that was so elaborate? So this is just typical. It's very nice. Our first hotel in Thimphu, the left picture shows the inside of this hotel, and the right picture shows the outside. Very elaborate. We were at about 7,300 feet above sea level at this point. One of the things you see when you're driving around Bhutan are these Satsa memorial cones. They are to honor the relatives and friends who have passed, and they're these votives that are made of clay, and sometimes they have the ashes from the departed mixed in with the sculptures. But you see these everywhere. You also see these fancy roundabouts. Pretty cool, I think. So one of the first places we went to was a Buddhist temple, the Punakha Dzong in Paro. These temples, or these dzongs, actually serve two purposes. They're administrative sites for the state, and they are also sites of religious activity, and they hold relics and remains in some cases. There's another view as we go up the steps to enter. They call it the Palace of Great Happiness or Bliss. It was built in 1637 to 8. Another view from a courtyard. This is another hotel we stayed in. This is more in the center of the country. So here are guides. Josh is the one with the brown hat, the tallest guy. He's the head of Red Hill Birding, and he hired these excellent guides. The head guide was Norbu and his brother Tenzin on the far right. Norbu is in the middle, sort of. And then near the end, Pema joined us. I think I should mention also that this tour had a Thailand extension at the end, but I won't go into that on this talk. So we drove in this van that you can see on the right side, and we'd always have lunch and breakfast outdoors. So a truck with all the supplies would go out ahead of us from the hotel set up. We'd get there after some birding, perhaps for breakfast, and have a wonderful meal um, out in these beautiful sites. Here's a typical valley that we would encounter, often driving along roads on the sides. And this is just an early morning shadow of our bus. This is a map showing where we submitted eBird checklists, and we started off in the west here near Paro and Thimphu, came down the middle towards the border with India, and then made this loop and came back. Now, it doesn't seem like it's very long. I should also mention that I saw 311 species there, and 275 of them were new birds for me. And when I show the birds, I will show what their current conservation status is, from least concern on the right to near threatened, vulnerable, and endangered. And also show you a distribution of where eBird eBirders have identified them. Anyways, we would often drive along roads that you see here, and it would take longer than you would think, because on the average, there are 27 switchbacks per mile in these roads in Bhutan. So it takes you a while. So let's start with some of the birds. Here's the pheasant. It's the blood pheasant. It's just a colorful bird that we saw in several places. And here's where you can see it. You see that you'll see this in a lot of cases, that the Himalayas can tend to be a boundary. And then you'll see birds either further east in China, for example, or further south, Southeast Asia, or combinations. It's a fairly common pattern. So here's a video of a Himalayan monal that we found, or we saw in a monastery. This is a male, and he's about to show off, excuse me, to three females that are up and to the right, spreading his tail feathers, figuring out what he's going to do. And then he starts hopping up and down. And then says, "Wow, aren't I amazing?" Again, this bird is found along the Himalayas. This is a female that he was trying to impress. We also saw the Hodgkin's frogmouth. This is in the nightjar family. It has bristles about its mouth where it can catch insects to eat. We saw this guy at night. And here's its distribution. We also saw a black-tailed crake in Paro in a wetlands. Not a great picture, but Cool bird. It's in the rail family. One of the favorite birds people want to see are the black-necked cranes. They're considered um, very special in Bhutan and India. You actually, in some places, and this is one of the places, you can't really go down and get close to them because you're not allowed to get close to them. And this is their distribution. As I mentioned, they're culturally protected, and you can see them in various artwork as well. So this is, I think, the only bird that overlaps with the birds that Clive showed at his talk a month ago. This is the ibis bill. It is in the order that includes sandpipers, plovers, gulls, skuas, and others. Maybe mostly closely related to oyster catchers and avocets, but some of these birds still need a lot more genetic investigations to figure out exactly where they belong in the taxonomy. By the way, this whole presentation of the birds is in taxonomic order. I couldn't figure out a better way to do this because some of these birds are seen all sorts of different parts of the country. And here we have a gray-headed lapwing. Some of the population winters in northern Southeast Asia. The red-wattled lapwing, incredibly widespread in Asia from the Middle East down into Malaysia, very solid in India. I think a nice elegant bird is the Indian pond heron, often found at the edge of small water bodies. And they also roost uh, close to human habitation. I'm not sure why. Again, very widespread from the Middle East, or at least Persian Gulf area, um, into India and Southeast Asia. Able to see a crested serpent eagle. There are various subspecies across Asia. I took this picture from David Kirsch out of the Macaulay Library, so you can actually see the crest on the eagle. Again, very widespread. There are several subspecies which may eventually be considered separate species on their own. Paula's fish eagle is another eagle we saw. It's endangered. It's spotted more, uh, less frequently, obviously. It's a pretty bird. This is the Asian barred owlet. It's a pygmy owl, but it's one of the bigger pygmy owls. It ranges from about 9 to 10 inches in length and eats mostly insects, but will take small rodents and birds as well. It's also widespread in Southeast Asia, but it has its boundary with the Himalayas. The collared owlet is also known as the collared pygmy owl. It's found in near mountains, montane forests, and as well as open spaces throughout Asia. It's the smallest owl in Asia and being about 6 inches long, 60 grams, which is only 2.1 ounces. This guy has a little rodent feast. I don't know if you can make out any of that. Similar distribution. So this is a red-headed trogon. I was familiar with trogons from Central and South America. This is its distribution in Southeast Asia. It turns out that trogons are found throughout the neotropics from Central and South America through Africa and Asia. There's 43 species of trogons, and there's 12 of them in Southeast Asia. And the Trogonidae family also includes the trogons and six quetzals. And they're the only birds with something called heterodactyly. So the first and second digits point backwards, and their third and fourth digits face forward. Most birds have three toes that point forward and one backwards, and that's called anisodactyly. So there you go about um, toes. So this is a bird that I'm sure many of you who have traveled to Africa or Europe may have seen. It's the Eurasian um, hoopoe, and you can see its distribution very extreme. Even up in Iceland, there are reports. I think this was the fourth country I'd seen it in. There are a number of hornbills in Bhutan. This is the great hornbill, also known as the great Indian hornbill. And it's one of the larger members of the hornbill family. And occurs in the Indian subcontinent as well as, well, various portions of Southeast Asia. Eats mostly fruit, but can prey on small animals, reptiles, and birds. The rufous-necked hornbill is actually, and here's one of it flying, is actually extinct now in Nepal and is suffering from loss of habitat. It's thought that there are less than 10,000 adults left in the wild. Here we have a picture of an oriental pied hornbill. It's also known as the Malaysian pied hornbill. It's considered one of the smallest and most common of the Asian hornbills. You can see its distribution there. Now, when I see this picture, I think, well, maybe there's two of them there, but actually using this picture from Chakrabarty from Macaulay Library, you can see that that's just the horn on top of the bill. It's quite large, interesting. This is a blue-bearded bee eater. Lots of bee eaters in Asia and Africa. This bee eater has a flat end of the tail. It doesn't have those shafts with the long central tail feathers that many bee eaters have. This may be the largest species in the bee eater family. Another wide distribution. This is the white-throated kingfisher, sometimes known as the white-breasted kingfisher. It can be found well away from water as well. Feels feeds on a wide range of uh, prey, including small reptiles, amphibians, crabs, rodents, and even other birds. Again, a wide distribution from Africa all the way east and down into Indonesia. Now this is a crested kingfisher. It might remind you of the arc-belted kingfisher. It's one of four species of kingfisher that belong to the same genus. They um, call this a species complex. Here's a picture of a blue-eared barbet. It's in eastern Nepal through northeast India to southern Thailand and Indochina. Usually less than 5,000 feet in altitude. There's a blue-throated barbet. I didn't get a great picture of it, so I borrowed this one from uh, Raj Kumar Das, also from Macaulay Library, so you can see the striking colors in the head. Again, it's not found terribly high, less than a mile in altitude generally. Um, okay. Again, you see that boundary with the Himalayas too up here. Here's the white-browed pickerel. Lives in dense wet or dry forests with plenty of vines and bamboo. It's a cute little bird. And there's its distribution, pretty widespread in Southeast Asia. We also saw this Himalayan subspecies of the lesser yellownape woodpecker, widespread distribution. Didn't get a great picture of this collared falconet, but it's a nice looking bird, often near water. Again, not very high, not found in elevations more than about 2,600 feet. And there's its distribution. These scarlet minivets were quite quite prominent. The male in red and the female in yellow. They would go out from the trees and catch insects in flight. Widespread distribution. Here we have a black-eared shrike babbler. It's in the vireo family, which you might suspect by looking at it. And it's found in subtropical or tropical moist montane forests. This is one of my favorite birds. This was the yellow-billed blue magpie. You can see the yellow bill, and you can see a little bit of blue on the top of its tail feathers on the outside. Here it is showing from the underside, and you can see the um, long tail with the patterns. Oops, let's see. Again, it seems to be restricted to the Himalayas. Here's a common green magpie. It can eat food from both on the ground and in the canopy. Eats different animal prey, invertebrates, small reptiles, mammals, young birds and eggs. Even will forage on carcasses. The red-billed chough, I've never seen one before. Maybe I should have because its distribution is very widespread from United Kingdom, Spain, northwestern Africa, all the way across Asia. You can see these in large flocks like crows. I like this one because it's cute and it has a great name, yellow-bellied fairy fantail. It's the only species in its genus and often is found in mixed flocks. The sultan tit, this is a subspecies that we saw there. Again, it's the only species in its genus, so it's fairly distinct from some of the other tits that you might run into, such as the greenback tit, found in boreal forests, temperate forests, and even subtropical or tropical moist lowland forest. A gray crested tit, similar distribution. Here's a bird, the red-vented bulbul, that I'd actually seen before, even though it's found mostly in India and uh, nearby um, Bhutan and um, Bangladesh and so forth. It's been introduced worldwide in other places. Here you can see some in Saudi Arabia, but it's even introduced in the USA and is found in North and South America. This is not a great picture, but it's a lovely bird, the fire-tailed Myzornis. Mm. It's distantly related, perhaps, to Old World warblers, often found between 9 and 13,000 feet. Excuse me. There's a white-browed fulvetta, a couple pictures of that bird. I find it particularly handsome and striking, found in temperate forests. There's a fulvous parrotbill, also known as the fulvous-fronted parrotbill, or the fulvous-fronted Suthoras. And it has some other names too, like crowtit. Anyways, another pretty bird. Here we have the black crown scimitar babbler. I love the way they string all these names together. Found mostly in subtropical moist montane forests. Striking bird, I think. So there are a number of laughing thrushes. We saw 12 different laughing thrushes in Bhutan. This is the chestnut crowned laughing thrush. See it along the Himalayas. This is another one, the spotted laughing thrush. It's supposed to be a subtropical or tropical moist montane forest, but this one we spotted at 12,000 feet at Chilela Pass, which I'll show you pictures from a little later. This isn't the greatest picture of a spotted forktail. It was early in the morning down by a stream, which is where you find these forktails. But I just thought that the black and white patterning was cool. So that's why I'm showing that. You can see it's also found along the Himalayas and spottily in other parts of more eastern Asia. We saw a couple different types of bush robins. Here's a white-browed bush robin. I think the brows and the sort of mustache are really cool. Here's its distribution. Another is a golden bush robin. This is a female. I didn't see a male. So here's a male by Rijal Karim from the Macaulay Library. You can see the mask on it, the black on the tail with the yellow rump. Similar distribution. There's a fire-breasted flower pecker. Don't really have much to say about it, but it's a pretty bird, striking uh, red on the upper chest there, widespread. A black-throated sunbird found in subtropical or tropical moist lowland forest, but up by the Himalayas as well. Here's a green-tailed sunbird. It lives at a slightly higher altitude, but obviously can be found in Southeast Asia at lower altitudes. The crimson sunbird, striking red. Obviously, these sunbirds feed on nectar, but they can also take insects. And they can hover like a hummingbird as well. There's a distribution from the Himalayas down into Indonesia, Malaysia. There's a picture of a golden-fronted leaf bird. Eats mostly insects and berries. Widely distributed in Southeast Asia and India. The orange-bellied leaf bird, similar distribution. Well, maybe not so much in India, but certainly Southeast Asia, pretty bird. Finally, the rufous-breasted accentor. This is endemic to the Himalayas. I think maybe Clive talked about accentors too, being um, up in these high altitudes, sort of sparse. This is the one that we saw, the rufous-breasted one. But it does go more east into China. So I just would finish with a few other animals and then some more on the scenery in Bhutan. I just like this picture of the June beetle. I don't know why. It looked like somebody took gold leaf and applied it to the upper scapula. It has cool antennae. Saw a number of different types of monkeys. Here's a capped langur. Very handsome, but it's vulnerable at this point, being found in Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. The Assam macaque. It's near threatened. You can see the territory that it's found in: Nepal, Bhutan, northern India, China, and so forth. This is the Nepal gray langur. It's not as threatened. Hangs out near the Himalayas. I think my favorite was the G's golden langur. We found these guys. Normally they hang out in the trees and the canopies, and occasionally come down to rocks to get salt and minerals. And it's hypothesized that they do this because they're a leaf eater, and this dense vegetation the digestion of that vegetation is helped by the salts and minerals. At least that's a hypothesis. And on the right, you can see a younger one hanging on to an adult. This was just along the side of the road. They're endangered. Um, about 17 years ago, they were counted at 6,000. About 5 years ago, they had up to about 7,400. So I hope they're still on an uptick. I don't know what the latest census is. So this is a yak, and this is a domesticated yak. I didn't realize that there's a separate species, which is the uh, wild yak, Bos mutus. And apparently, it's thought that the domestic yak and the wild yak diverged about 1 to 5 million years ago. So there's been studies recently done on different um, ways that animals, the genetics of how animals get domesticated. And I don't know if this um, species split and developed one of those genes favorable to domestication. I don't know the answer to that. So the last animal is the red panda. We were fortunate enough to see three of these guys. Actually, the driver of our bus spotted it when we were stopped, and it was in the red panda habitat. And I think we were really lucky to see these three red pandas because our guide, this was his seventh trip, and he had never seen a red panda before. The Their place on the evolutionary tree has been debated, but it seems that it's has a closer relationship to raccoons, weasels, and skunks, and it's definitely not related to the giant panda, which is really a bear, even though both the giant panda and the red panda have so-called elongated wrist bones or false thumbs, which they use to grasp bamboo. There are two actual recognized subspecies, the Himalayan and the Chinese. They thought that they diverged about 250,000 years ago. They're endangered, and this is their distribution. So a couple last things. This is Druk Wangyal Chortens or stupas at Jochula Pass, and you can see the Himalayas in the distance. There are 108 of these stupas that were built to commemorate the 11 soldiers, Bhutanese soldiers who died um, in their successful efforts to remove Indian insurgents who had settled into southern Bhutan. They tried negotiating with these insurgents for about 6 years without success. So they finally brought the army to bear and eliminated or removed the um, insurgents out of Bhutan. These are um, views from another pass, Chilela Pass, where we saw the spotted laughing thrush. I think this was the highest we got to, 12,500 feet. You can see a couple of the mountains there. Um, the the tallest white one on the left is Masang Kang, which is 23,600 feet. And the smaller white pyramid over here is Tzenda Khan, which is 21,200 feet. Another view a little bit more to the east from the same pass. And this is arrow is pointing to the Gangkar Punsum, also known as Kanchenjunga. It's 24,800 feet, and it's the fourth highest mountain in the world. It's the highest mountain in Bhutan, and it's thought to be the highest unclaimed mountain in the world. At least it hasn't been climbed from the Bhutanese side, whether it's been climbed from the Chinese side. I don't think anyone knows. We went to a monastery called Tiger's Nest. It was in this precarious position on the side of this cliff. Here you can see from a different vantage point. We took a 2 mile hike from the parking lot at about 8,500 feet up to the monastery at 10,000 feet. Wasn't too strenuous except near the end where you actually went down 500 feet or so and came up another 500 feet to get across this ravine to get to it. Unfortunately, you're not allowed to have any photographic equipment or cell phones, so I don't have any pictures from inside, but it was very pretty. Another view. Halfway up, there's a restaurant, so you could get refreshments and food if you so desired. Couple last things. Archery is the national sport of Bhutan, and we came across a tournament that they were having. They would shoot these arrows about 100 yards or so, aiming for a small target. You can see one of the targets in back of this archer. Um, and the winners were the ones who got it closest to the target. If you actually hit the target, there was a big celebration. I think we saw him hit the target once. As I mentioned, they did a lot of decorating of the buildings and they did a lot of paintings and artworks within the buildings. I could have done several slideshows just of the pictures that I captured of the artwork. Just very, very cool. Of course, there's also this plant, Cannabis sativa. It's interesting that it grows all over the place, but it's illegal to use. So you can look at it, but that's about it. Don't touch. This is the river valley that the capital's in, Thimphu. And finally, this is where the National Museum of Bhutan is located. This is part of it. This round structure has all these very interesting artifacts, history. Uh, it's just very interesting to walk around the circle of this in this museum. It also has an art museum there. So I think that is about it for my talk. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them. I guess.
Do these birds migrate? Um,
Well, some do and some don't. And so the ones that tend to be higher up in latitude, they will do some migrating further south. But I don't think there's a lot of migration of those, most of those birds. But I don't know the answer for sure for all those birds. I'm sorry.
but they wouldn't migrate, let's say, down to Indonesia or Malaysia. They just migrate local, small area locally. So the weather doesn't have a problem. The weather isn't a problem.
I think that's mostly correct.
Beautiful pictures.
Thank you.
I traveled across the Karakoram Highway from one part of China, from the capital all the way uh, to across, and it was wonderful. And
Yeah,
saw birds there too, but absolutely beautiful.
I bet it was.
Yeah,
Sorry. I heard that Bhutan had a very intriguing financial tourist policy in an effort to keep being flooded with hippies like Nepal. They have a requirement that tourists have to spend something like $500 a day in order to be a tourist there. Is that correct? And if so, how does that affect you?
There is a fee for a daily fee for visiting. I know that it was pretty high at one point. I'm afraid I don't remember what the fee is now, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't $500 a day because that would have been a lot of money over the course of 2 weeks. So I think it's more like $100, something like that. But I don't remember. But you're right, they do have a fee. I don't know if it's to keep tourists out, I mean hippies out or what, because they don't have to give you a visa to come in if they don't want, but uh,
Any other questions? Yes. Francesca. Hi there. I just wondered what the pace of the trip was like. Were you like racing all day? Was it really vigorous? Did you work out and get strong before you went? How was it?
you know, when you go on these trips um, to these countries, most of the people on the trips are um, like retired or about to retire, right? So most of us are not running triathlons or that sort of thing anymore. Um, so yes, it helps to be in decent shape, but the pace is not outrageous. So you'll drive from one place to another along the road, say, get out, maybe walk quarter of a mile or half a mile, maybe a mile. The bus will pick you up, and then you move on to the next spot. And so um, I would say the pace is not real fast. It's comfortable.
But I would say that when we did the hike up to Tiger's Nest, some people were not fit to do that and knew that they couldn't. Um, and they offered them an alternate, alternate activity that day, and they took them somewhere else. And then one person just walked up to that restaurant, which is like halfway. So you get a good view of Tiger's Nest there, but um, not quite, you don't get to see the inside.
Yeah, that was definitely the most strenuous hike of the whole trip by far. Yeah, the rest of the time was mostly fairly flat or slight sloping roads and paths.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We have another question.
You can take pictures of the inside of the tiger's nest and describe it.
We weren't allowed to take pictures. We weren't allowed. When we got there, we had to give our cameras, phones, that sort of thing, and they put them in a locker. So we came out.
But can you paint a picture for us of what you did see? What did
Well,
you?
I showed you some pictures from the outside across the ravine. Those are basically the
Could
best.
you describe the interior?
Um, I'll let Alice do that. She has a better memory for
Well,
architecture and so forth.
there were lots and lots of pictures of the various Buddhas, and some on fabric, some on wood. And there were a lot of people praying. They, prostate, pros they bow down on their knees. You can't be, you have to be fit to be a Buddhist, I think. So they bow down, they stand up, and it's almost like doing, what is that exercise? Anyway, burpees. Yes, it's like doing burpees over and over and over again. Um, but the picture that Scott showed of the Buddha, it's a lot of paintings like that with a lot of detail, and but they represent different stories in the various Buddhas' lives, and there's so many different Buddhas and different colors and different things they represent. So it was different rooms were devoted to different subjects.
Alice, did they have a tour guide or was it self-directed?
No, you have to go with a guide. In fact, our guide has to wear specific clothing there. I don't think Scott showed any of the clothing, but yeah, the royalty emphasized to people to dress in traditional clothing. So all the kids going to school are wearing traditional garb, and the guides have to wear traditional garb to even go into any of the temples. And then when we got there, there was not only our guide, but a second guide. Um, and so you could spend as much time as you wanted. You could ask as many questions as you wanted. Yeah, it was self-paced in that sense, but you had to stay with your guide.
Yeah, I was too distracted by looking for birds on the windowsills and on the roof and things like that to remember all of that.
And you had to take your shoes off anytime you entered a temple and leave them
course.
outside.
Yep.
It was cold walking around in your socks way up that high.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah, this, go ahead.
Hey, Scott, this is Mark and Alice. How was the food over there? Did you all eat as Bhutanese eat, or did you have other options on the trip? Food options?
Well, I think we ate what they ate. I would say that it wasn't, they didn't have my most favorite food in the world. I said we went on an extension to Thailand afterwards, and the food I preferred there. It's what we got in Bhutan, but it was, some of the food was really good, and some of it was, for me, it was kind of plain and not so, a little greasy.
They eat a lot of rice, and we didn't eat nearly as much rice as they do. They have huge bowls of rice they eat at every meal. And then they tend to put a lot of very spicy pepper sauce on the rice when they eat it. It was way too hot for us to eat. But the cook did a really good job, the one that traveled with us, making breakfasts and lunches along the way. I don't think he repeated anything. So when the food was a little more Nepalese and a little more Indian, it was good. But sometimes it wasn't so great.
We have another question here.
Well, that was my question. Was most of it vegetarian?
Was most of it vegetarian?
There were vegetarian options, certainly, yeah.
But we had meat as well.
Forget we had,
Lots of chicken.
yeah, and we had people with allergies or different things, and they accommodated everything. They were very accommodating, very lovely people.
How many in your group?
10, something like that.
Good.
There was one man that needed a BPAP, CPAP machine.
CPAP.
Yeah, so he needed electricity every night. We had 2 nights that we had to camp. Scott didn't show you a picture of it was more like glamping. People put the tents up for us. They put cots for us to sleep on. They put a nightstand between us. They gave us lights, and they had a rug on the, on the floor. So it was pretty easy, but we had to camp because there were no hotels in the areas that we were a couple times, but we were very comfortable nonetheless. And this man that needed a CPAP, they asked a family if he could stay in one of their rooms, and they were like, sure. I'm sure they paid them, but and then another time we were in a park, and there was a special building that he was given access to. So they took care of everybody really well.
That was fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Scott, for an amazing for an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
Enjoyable.